gentlemen, welcome to MES Presents 9 on the Q, the show that discusses billiards and current events and how the two may intertwine. I'm your host, Tyreek A. Murphy, and today we have special guest, real estate expert, host, one half of the DNA Sports Talk dynamic duo, and producer, Mr. Asa Brown. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, man, I'm not, I'm going to push through. You know what I mean? This change in weather down here. I got like a little slight head cold, but I wasn't going to miss this for the world. So yeah. I apologize if, you know what I mean, I seem a little bit off, but I'm going to push through.
No, you're good. You're good. Outside of that, how are you and the family holding up out here in these COVID streets?
Man, listen, good weeks and bad weeks, right? As you go on, people around you, unfortunately, get tested positive. So sometimes it always feels like you like one person away. And then, there's other times where you don't really come across anybody in your circle, that has had any issues. But these last couple of weeks, though, I've had some personal friends that have lost some family members due to complication. I actually got a text message earlier today. I got a family member of mine. I got an aunt that's in the hospital, but she's up in age, but she's in the hospital due to some complications because of COVID. So, it's just rough, man. It's rough out here for everybody. So I will say, please wear your mask. Please, make sensible and smart decisions. And, you do what you have to do, right? You got to go to work. You got to go make a living and whatnot. But there's some other things that you don't necessarily have to do. We'll get back to that soon. Just take your time and find some other kind of, find something else to occupy your time. But, I'm down here in Atlanta. We've been wide open since March 2020. And so, it's crazy.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So let's get on cue, man. Tell us, when was your first experience into the world of pool?
So, when you sent me these questions, man, I went through and I was like, yo, Ty got some heavy hitters in here. So I'm going to make sure I try to be one of the best guests you've had. So my first experience with pool, I'm from, anybody that's read our biography on DNA Sports Talk. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, but my father is a Georgia boy. So, so I got family down in South Georgia. Vidalia. So I would spend summers with my aunt, and I had a cousin that would come down from New Jersey, New York. So we would spend a lot of time. So after we would do our chores, my aunt, older cousins would throw us a couple of dollars or whatever, and there was a video game pool hall up the street. So being in the country, there ain't much to do, right? So we would go up there and we would play the video games. But what we learned was, if you wasn't good at the video games, you would lose your money real quick. You run out of quarters or, 50 cents or whatever the game cost real quick. So we started playing pool and would, put the quarters in the pool table, but then we would hold the ball. So, go for a shot before it fall in, we would catch it. So we could play longer and longer and longer without, having to re-rack all the balls all the time. So we figured out how to cheat the system, I guess you can say. So that was my first experience playing pool.
Right. Okay. So when you play from time to time, since then, what interests you to play, or rather, what influenced you to play?
So I guess I'm gonna tell my age in a little bit. So back then, you had the worldwide of sports. This is like, so you didn't necessarily have to have cable. And then, cable was, cable then came on the scene, right when the worldwide of sports was kind of making an exit off the TV. But they would always, especially in the off season, they would always have different stuff on. So you remember they would have people doing the slalom jump, they would have different sports all over the world. But, they would also do billiards and do a lot of the PBA, the bowling, Professional Bowling Association. So, I would watch that, and there was, the main person that would come to mind that I remember watching the most was, I think they called what do they call her? The Asian chick.
You talking about the Black Widow?
The Black Widow. Yeah.
Jeanette Lee?
Yep. So, again, sitting there watching, and there was other people too, but for whatever reason, to see a woman, but then also to see, she was Asian was kind of like, oh wow, what's going on with that?
Right.
And me and my cousin, we would try to emulate some of the stuff we saw in there, especially when they were playing at the time. I didn't know what they were talking about, 9-ball, we didn't have no idea, but we would try to emulate some of the stuff that she was doing, or any of the players, the billiards players, trying to learn how to bring the ball back down, all that kind of stuff. So she was probably really the first person to kind of be etched in my mind.
Okay. So with that component being said, you definitely have a variety of ways in which you have to, prepare yourself. So even, from playing pool to the things outside of pool, as a host and a producer, how do you prepare yourself, between the two different entertainment roles?
So it's interesting. So, we've been doing this, 8 years, this past December 11th. December 10th, been 8 years, 9 years. So we got into it similar to me for the first time, started kind of, playing around on a billiards table or whatever. We didn't know what we was doing. We seen some, every guy sits back and watches ESPN and Sports Center or some sort of sports show and, like, what, hey man, I could do that too, right? But, to actually go out and try to do it, it's definitely a learning curve. So, we came into this thing green. So started off on the radio, internet radio, and then, worked our way to actual radio station AM, and then to ink some deals with TV stations here in the Metro Atlanta area. And then as technology has grown, we have been able to, build our format on, social media. So, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I would say Periscope, but as as the landscape changes, we got to change as well. So now Periscope is kind of going out the door, and now you have Twitch, so you got to learn that. Just like pool, there's 1,000 different shots, right? So once you do something, then you got to sit back and look at what your options are after you've made that particular shot, and then adjust and adjust and do what needs to be done accordingly. But you always have a goal at the end. You always, you don't do anything without having a goal. So, for us, I just kind of broke, we started off the internet, and it was like, hey man, let's see if we can get to a radio station. Hey man, let's see if we can get, syndicated on a cable station. So there's always a goal. The goal is always changing. And so, like I said, just like pool, when you shoot the ball doesn't always stop where you want to, but you got to adjust.
Right, exactly. So just to change gears a little bit, with the Black community calling for systematic reform and budget reallocations across the nation, yourself as a Black man, as a father, and as an entrepreneur, what do you think should be government officials' essential priority?
So, when I was going through the question, I seen this. I hope I don't get too long-winded. I think basically people in general, but especially us and African American community, we want to start to the top and then work our way down, and that's not how it works. It really works from the grassroots on the way up. So, you got to make a change in your own local community. So when it comes to, in this instance, police reform, you got to have a plan. Right? We just talked about having a plan. So what's that plan? What's that plan looks like? What does that plan look like in a township? What does that plan look like in a small city? What does that plan look like in a region? And then what does that plan look like nationally? And so you got to cut your teeth and make your changes locally. So police reform, and then you got to word it appropriately. So, I think the last thing when people say defund, the defund to most people, even myself, means you're gonna clip money. You're going to take money away and they're not going to get it back. So, the wording has to be, should have been, in my opinion, a little bit different. So you want to reallocate and move. But I think the main thing, though, is I haven't heard an ideology that has been, everybody can kind of get behind it. So doctors have consequences when, they don't perform the way they're supposed to be. They got to go before the medical board. Lawyers have consequences. They got to go before, the ethics board. Bankers, for the most part, accountants, they have an ethic, and when they don't do right, they have to go before a board. So when you look at police, which in my opinion, they are public servants, they don't have any accountability at all. So you can be here in Atlanta, you can have a cop, kill somebody in Fulton County, 6 months suspension, maybe get fired or he leaves, but he pops back up a year or two later in Clayton County or in Gwinnett, or he might leave the whole region and pop up in New York. So every time when you see these gentlemen, these officers, when they've done something that they shouldn't have done, and then they pull their rap sheet and how many times they've been reprimanded, almost 9 out of 10 times. It's been several times. They've worked their way up to the unthinkable, which is, unfortunately taking somebody's life. But there's no accountability. Everything winds up coming back on to the general public and taxes. So, family can sue the, can sue the Atlanta PD. The payment gets paid. But guess who pays for it? Taxpayers in Atlanta. Like exactly. the cops don't even, the unions and the cops don't even pay. So there's no accountability. There's no teeth to anything that they have. So I've always been, kind of sitting back trying to figure out, how do you wind up coming up with a plan to hold officers accountable, not just one time, but over their career. So just like a lawyer, if a lawyer needs to get disbarred because he's a bad lawyer, he's a bad lawyer. He gets barred. And he can't be a lawyer nowhere else. Right. A doctor loses his license, he can't be a doctor nowhere else. So guess what these doctors and these lawyers do? They make sure, whether they're bad or not, it could be a quack, it could be you see one right now with Rudy Giuliani. They're real. They walk a fine line because they're more afraid of having to go to the bar and sit down amongst ethics than they are of the general public. And so there's teeth there. You know what I mean? Right. So until you do that with officers across the board, until you get there, and we got it with everything else. They don't build no cars. They don't build any cars without going through a test to make sure the seatbelts work and the lights work and the brakes work. Exactly. You know what I mean? And when they don't, they have a recall. And if they don't have a recall and somebody gets killed, they get paid for it. And what happens to that company when they constantly have a bad product? Don't nobody buy their product anymore. So exactly. I just don't understand why that concept is not applied to police officers across the board.
Right. So as a bonus question to you, especially when you talk about plans, how do you feel going into this new into the new president, the new administration, with the House, the Senate now being Democratic, based off of the 2 seats that was won there in Georgia by Reverend Warnock and John Asa?
Again, they got to play a fine line. Part of me is like, push everything straight down their throat, because on the other side they would have did it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then you already have the divisiveness. So if you play that playbook, then we're really teetering, man. Be honest with you, we're really teetering. I personally think that we're already in a civil war, and it's not a civil war that you would think about. People out in the streets really kind of warring and shooting a bloodbath and what they kind of project to be the civil war from in the 1800s or whatever, or civil wars in third world countries that people pick up arms and go against the government. We're in a civil war when it comes to how people want to live their lives. And so the problem is on both sides. I, as a Republican, want to force feed my thought process down your throat. And then as a Democrat, I want to force feed my thought process down your throat. And so when you have that kind of thought process, then this is what you wind up having. And it's always funny. Most of the time, on either party, it is based upon, in my opinion, based upon religion. So, when you ask people, what about you want to vote for a certain person or whatever, they'll be like, well, you know what? I don't believe in abortion. They don't believe in abortion. And that's what I'm going to vote for them because that's that one singular thing that we agree to. Even though everything else they do is to the detriment of yourself. That's the one thing that you will hold your hat, you hold on to help you say that's the reason why I want to vote for that person. And it's funny, but at the same time, those same individuals will tell you that there's a separation between church and state. So, if there's a separation between church and state, I am not in the position to be judge, jury, or executioner based on whoever I may serve and believe in. My job as an individual is to make sure as a decision to help me live, comfortably in the current, world or the body that I have for, these 60, 70, 80, Lord willing, 90 years. So that should be my decision. If you want to do something that I believe on a spiritual aspect that's wrong, that's you. You got to answer to that maker or whoever you believe in. That's a responsibility and a conversation you need to have. But if making this decision about transportation and having, instead of killing the earth and having multiple avenues of getting around the city, not just building more roads so, we can pollute the earth or whatever. No, that doesn't make any sense to them because I'm going to kill the earth on this side, but you decide to have an abortion. It's an abomination. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of mindset. And I don't know how you fix that, to be honest with you. I really don't.
It's just amazing how some of the common grounds that people have, and what they may agree on, the different varieties, it's just interesting. But, as a result of cases, such as Breonna Taylor and Rashard Brooks there in, ATL, do you give an extra sense of protection for yourself and the Black females in your life? And would that, extend to the Second Amendment?
Again, what I said earlier about having looking at a situation and starting from the top on the way down, and I think it should be from the bottom on the way up. I'm not a gun owner, so there are, but I don't have any problem. 2/3 of my friends I know are legal weapon carriers, so I personally don't have one. But at any given time, I can be with somebody that I know does have one in the glove compartment, whatever the case may be.
That's just to let y'all know out there. You know what I'm saying? One flick of the button, and he got the protection team coming for you. That's what he indirectly telling y'all in case y'all not paying attention. He doesn't have to have the heat. He always have the heat surrounded.
There you go.
We got you.
But with that mindset, there's certain things that I have to do with my family and friends and anybody. There's a certain mindset in the way you do kind of walk and you do kind of live. And unfortunately, you can do all the things you need to do. And in the case of Breonna Taylor, it still comes to you, right? Like there's nothing, whether he had the weapon or didn't have the weapon, there was nothing that was going to happen. I mean, what was going to happen was going to happen. Unfortunately, they knocked on the wrong door, regardless. So I don't want to get into the situation of saying, well, if he didn't have the gun, he might be here. No, that's not the issue. The issue is, you individually have to take steps to keep yourself and the people around you safe. And so, how does that work? If you can afford it, do you live in a pretty decent neighborhood? But unfortunately, even with that doesn't work. You got the gentleman, I forget his name, in Dallas, who the officer came into a highly secure apartment and still got in this apartment and still shot him. You know what I mean? So you can do all the things that you're supposed to do, and you can still wind up at a tragic end. So I am not going to focus my police reform back to making sure we cut down on, make sure we hire the proper officers so that they do their job. Make sure that there's a committee that we can, a committee that will have a committee of officers, but also maybe someone that's from the local community also be on that board so that they can actually talk and give the people's opinion on what's going on. Because when you make certain laws and you make certain changes within your police department, that ultimately affects the citizens. And so again, I'm more so the Second Amendment. You want to have your gun, have it, not a problem. I'm not going to go back to the 1800s and help you understand why it was. I mean, initially the Second Amendment was because we didn't have an army in the country. When they created the country, there was no army. So they had to have every able-bodied man had to be able to have a weapon in case they got invaded. And as time changed, now we have an army, right? We have military. So to a degree, the Second Amendment has outlived its requirements. But the Second Amendment, again, has changed over time on how people view the Second Amendment. And that's just, again, that's a conversation that, to me, you're like a hamster going around in a circle, and you don't get anywhere. There's other places to put your energy and your time and your effort to make substantial change.
Right. So with Atlanta being labeled the Black Hollywood, yourself as a real estate expert, how feasible is it for low to middle income earners to acquire land in Georgia?
Nothing's easy, right? But if you know what you're doing and you have, it can be relatively easy. But you can lose it just as fast as you get it, right? It just depends on where you come from. Like I've been here in Atlanta 20 plus years. I got here in '96, right around the Olympics. So I've seen Atlanta, really, really turn, several times over, right?
Right.
And so people that are from here, they're still like, oh man, I remember when, an apartment was $500 and everybody used to move from year to year chasing, low rent or, things of that nature. But then you would have somebody come from New York or you would have somebody come from California and be like, what are y'all doing, man? These, y'all got land out here. I can get a $200,000 home next to TI for what I was paying in Compton, you know what I mean? Or what I was paying in Brooklyn, for a studio. I can come down here and get a house and whatnot. So it just depends on who you're talking to. But the people that are down here, and this is anywhere you go, sometimes the locals don't actually get paid what is being paid in the area.
Right.
So I know a lot of people that have left Atlanta and gone to do big things in other cities, especially in smaller metropolitan areas around Charlotte, Birmingham, places like that. So, anything, if you got your business in order, it's not hard. It's not hard. Again, like I said before, you don't want to overextend yourself. So I see people come out here and, they get that $300,000 house and don't realize, and then they
taxes and all of the expenses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, they get you and say, buy a house that's $1,200 a month. Yeah. Or interest free. They don't realize, if in 60 months, you're going to get that balloon payment. You got to pay the piper, and so you have people that they get caught up because it's too easy to do certain things. And then down the road, they wind up not realizing, they kind of set themselves up for failure.
The market's
still booming down here, though.
Oh, it's still okay. Okay,
it's still moving. I say all that to say it's still moving.
Oh man, it's fun. But in regards again, with as it pertains to the real estate aspect, what do you feel, just to dig in a little bit more and to be a little bit more specific, what is the feel down there like in regards to the demographic? Are we seeing an increase in black home ownership, or a decrease? Like how is that panning out for you?
So I am now on like the commercial side of property management. So I'm in operations and the functionality of businesses and things of that nature. But the company that I work for also, we have a residential single family home component to the to the market. It just depends on where you're looking at, right? So there are some areas historic, like say the historic west side of Atlanta. It really is changing, and it's changing. The pigmentation of the people that are moving in there don't necessarily look like me and you, right? So you have that going on. Where I live at, I live in the Highlands area off the Boulevard. The Boulevard, anybody from Atlanta know about the Boulevard. The Boulevard was a place where you ain't after 9:00. You ain't have no business at 7:00. You ain't have no when the street lights came on. You ain't have no business down here unless you knew somebody, right? And over time, they got chocolate 5Ks. People out here, riding their bikes, doing, the area has changed, and they're building, $500,000 townhomes right across from low income houses. So they are pushing out slowly. They are, turning over a lot of areas. I'm conflicted on how I feel about that, right? So for me, when you see that, yes, it's you kind of look in, as an African American, be like, man, the first thing we want to say is, oh, we be in gentrification, right? But on the other side of the coin, I'm like, well, how long do we have the Boulevard? How long do we have some of these areas? We've had it. It's been in our name and our parents' names or whatever since 1950, 1960. So now I'm thinking about 45, 50, 60 years we've had it, and we haven't done anything with it. And now we want to scream because somebody decided to come in and, actually kind of push us out. So, I know by saying that I may not, some people may not agree with me or look at me side-eye, but there's two sides to every coin, right? So, again, I think, going back to my initial conversation, initial statement about we need to do things at a grassroots. We need to be in the community, educating people on what's going on, letting them know, hey, yeah, you in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow, but your house is worth the house you have right now and what they're doing around. Yeah, your grandparents, your parents might have bought it for, $10,000 in 1950, but now it's worth $350. Don't sell it. You know what I mean? Do what you need to do to pay the taxes to keep it. And so, like Mayor Keisha Bottom, she made a comment. She was like, whatever you can do, with your homes on that historic west side, keep it. She caught some heat for it because they know what the projected cost is going to be soon with what's going on in the city. So again, in every aspect for us as the Black community, we got to me, revert back to the ground roots, revert back to self-sustaining education on economics, education on real estate, education on, educating ourselves on, how policy and things affect you directly. Educate yourself on making sure you voting and making sure you are, as far as the DA, as far as the chief of police, you got people that run unopposed. They don't have your best interest at heart. And we basically gave it to them because they ran unopposed. And then we want to be mad when they do something that doesn't fit our agenda because we have been looking at the prize at the top and not the prize at the bottom. If you can change the prize at the bottom, everything else, in my opinion, will fall in place.
Right. So coming back to your Billiards aspect, with major sports being on restrictions due to COVID, do you think Billiards have the opportunity to return to sports broadcasting? And would you watch or call a game?
Man, I would. So, two-part question. I think a lot of different sports missed the opportunity with the COVID. I think, like I mentioned, professional bowling missed the opportunity with the COVID. Billiards missed the opportunity with the COVID. Hell, even chess missed the opportunity with the COVID, where you can actually have a controlled environment, just two people. You know. I mean, people were watching whatever. For us at DNA Sports Talk, we've seen an uptick in our numbers this last year that we have not seen before. But guess what? People were out. People had time to actually look for content. So
right.
They got time. There was no need to watch ESPN because they're not going to show a highlight, right? So they were looking for some sort of different content to kind of fill their time. So we've seen an increase in people. Thank you, Michael Jordan, right? So since there wasn't any sports, every Monday we broke down, we broke down the documentary. So, I wish the worldwide of sports would come back. I wish ESPN would somehow do something where you can, there's a lot of other sports out there. I'll give an example. When you look up to see who are the most influential athletes in the world, Americans are like 11 and 12. You know what I'm saying? Like we aren't. It's the soccer guys. It's literally it's some racing guys, and then there's guys that play in India. They play oh my goodness. I don't know why I want to say badminton, but it's not badminton. What's the name of the game?
Please don't say cornhole.
No. They take a little curved stick and they throw it. It looked like baseball, but in a big soccer field. Oh my goodness!
You talking about cricket?
Cricket, yes. Cricket. So there's guys that but we sometimes over here in America we get caught in a bubble, right? So you got guys in India, they're 1 billion strong, right? The South Asia, they're 1.5 billion, 2 billion people strong. So if you got the most famous athlete in cricket and 1 billion strong, yeah, he's dominating LeBron James. He's dominating Tom Brady. So, because LeBron James and Tom Brady's, is basically concentrated to 300 Americans. They're global icons, but not, people don't watch the NBA on a regular basis. That's the reason why the NBA wanted to drop players over in, try to make it globally, try to get players over in Japan and in Asia and whatnot. So, I feel like we missed opportunities during the COVID to actually expand the viewership of certain sports. But I hope, to me, there's still time. There's still time. Again, I wish, they come back and, they have some sort of, billiard tournament or, go back to what it used to be in the early 80s and 90s before worldwide of sports kind of faded away. So.
All right. So give one technique you use in pool that could be utilized in other facets of your life.
So, like I was telling you before, I don't play as much as I probably would like to, but I will say this. So going to play pool is a great dating. So fellas, you listening? I'm gonna give you some. I'm gonna give you some insight.
Talk about it, brother. Let them know. I'm trying to tell them out here. I'm trying to tell them.
It's a great dating atmosphere because, again, you don't necessarily have to have any, quote unquote skill to play, but everybody thinks they play well, right? No matter if you're the first time player or, everybody's like, oh man, I get on them sticks, baby, let's go. Like everybody is competitive when it comes to pool. But you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about the person you're playing against. So I love games like that. That kind of makes me, like I said, think about things 2 or 3 steps out. So pool is like that. Chess is like that. Bowling is like that. Maybe not as much as chess and billiards, but, games that make you kind of, whenever you make a move, it's not going to be the same reaction every time. And so while you're there, you're having conversation. Most times people are at ease. because they're sitting there trying to, to a degree, focus on what they're trying to do while they're having a conversation. And so because they're not being pressured about questions, you know what I mean? They're telling you stuff about whatever's going on. So, and now since you don't have to, in most places, are non-smoking, you don't have to worry about, going to a smoke-filled place and, coming here, or, everybody's like, oh man, I get on them sticks, baby, let's go. Like, everybody is competitive when it comes to pool. But you learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about the person you're playing against. So I love games like that kind of makes me, like I said, think about things 2 or 3 steps out. So pool is like that. Chess is like that. Bowling is like that. Maybe not as much as chess and billiards, but, games that make you kind of, whenever you make a move, it's not going to be the same reaction every time. And so while you're there, you're having conversation. Most times people are at ease because they're sitting there trying to, they're telling you stuff about whatever's going on. So, and now since you don't have to, in most places, are non-smoking, you don't have to worry about, going to a smoke-filled place and, coming out, smelling like Camel or Cool's Box 100.
Absolutely, man. So tell us, man, what is there any iconic figure or celebrity that you would like to play a game of pool against?
I got 3. Can I have 3?
All right, let's break them down. Give us number 3 first.
No,
give us number 3. Number 3.
Simone.
Okay.
Number 2, Nia Long.
Yeah. All right.
And number 1, with everything that's going on right now, I definitely would love to have a game of pool with Colin Kaepernick. I would love to be able to sit around, play a couple of games, really, did he ask him questions? Did he believe, did he realize he was going to be a martyr? And what I mean by that, most time a martyr, you lose your life, but he lost his football life. So I always find it funny. People are like, oh, it should call Colin Kaepernick. It should call Colin Kaepernick, especially, when he was initially blackballed and whatnot. And I was like, do you know what a martyr is? A martyr, when you do certain things, especially when you bring attention to racial inequalities or inequalities to classism or, racism and things of that nature, sexism, anything you bring, you lose. You're going to lose. The society is not really set up to deal with you. So the first thing society will do is try to eliminate you before they change. So I really, want to play a couple of games with him and see if he really, going into this, did he understand, did he realize, or at what point did he realize that, hey, yes, I took this stand, but I also now realize that this is much bigger than me and I'm not going to ever probably have a football career again. So, what we've seen yesterday, what we've seen the last 4 years, but definitely the last 9 months,
right.
It's hard pressed to see somebody to say, taking a knee is disrespectful compared to what has happened over the last 9 months to a year. So
yeah, absolutely, flat out ridiculous.
Yep.
Flat out ridiculous. So tell us, brother, before I let you get out of here, is there any projects that you got going on, or that you and Don Stenton, for y'all who don't know, the other half of DNA Sports Talk, is there anything that you guys got going on or you have going on that we should be on the lookout for?
Man, unfortunately, COVID has kind of shut us down. We still doing the show, we still talking, but we waiting for, like everybody else, to kind of get back to some kind of normalcy where we can go to games in person. We can go to, do live broadcasts, things of that nature. We're like everybody else. We're just waiting to, have people back in the studio. We have people calling in. I think our last live person that we had in the studio was the great, man, I'm lost for names today. Head coach for Clark Atlanta University, played for George Lynch. We had him on, I think, late February, early March. That's the last person that we had on. And then, the lockdown kicked in. So, just, looking to get people back in the studio to, talk to them face to face. So whenever we get that go, where everybody gets that shot in that arm or multiple shots in that arm, we'll get back to that. But really right now, if you're following us, again, Periscope for us is Periscope is going to fall by the wayside, I think, by the end of March. So we're flipped over to a new platform, which is Twitch. You got to go there. You got to actually sign up and whatnot. There's no cost, but you got to actually have a subscription to it. So if you want to sign up to Twitch, if you want to go to YouTube and subscribe on YouTube, obviously there's Facebook Live. So just go to whatever social media that you're comfortable with. Kick in DNA, type in DNA Sports Talk, and follow us there.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank our extraordinary guest, one half of DNA Sports Talk, Mr. Asa Brown. Brother, we gotta link up and talk, man.
Yes, sir. Next time you get down here, I'm waiting for like I said, it's wide open, but I'm being safe. But I gotta get out to some places, man, so I can rock the Murphy Netties, baby. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, brother. Listen, you already know, especially when it comes to that real estate thing. We already talking. You working on something. We're working on something down there for me. Try to see if we can get something.
Yes,
I'm trying to transition, brother. I'm trying to transition.
Come on down here. They keep on saying you're full, man, but come on down here. You good? Just talk to me. Tell them come holler at me. I'll give you the pass.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Especially you gotta just press one button and the security team just comes through. But absolutely, brother. But now we're gonna talk, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man. I enjoy it. Thank you for having me on. Thank you very much.
Likewise, brother. Appreciate you.
All right.
Take care.